Hey everyone, Andres Gamboa here, and we are back for another episode of the Ponytails Podcast. This is going to be our season 6 finale. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. It is with one of the most impressive people I have ever met in my time since Southwestern. It's Ron Alford. We're here with him today. We'll talk a little bit more about Ron in a second. A quick couple of updates for you guys. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, be sure to do so. Thank you so much for those of you who have signed up. It is live. We're releasing that once a month. It's a good way to support us so you can find out what's been happening here on the show. So hopefully you guys enjoy. If this is your first episode, thank you and welcome to the show. And if you don't know what we're doing, what the heck this whole thing's about, why it's called the Ponytails Podcast, I'll just enlighten you. We are here interviewing people who sold books door to door with a company called Southwestern Advantage. Now, we're not affiliated with the company in any way. The company's been around since 1865. All connections that we have to this company is that I myself and some of the people on our team here on the show sold with this company. We sold books to help families with homework for 80 hours a week on straight commission for 12 weeks during our summers. Crazy idea. But it's been one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had, for good and for bad. And all around, it's been really interesting to get to hear some of the stories from these people who did this program for one summer or more summers and kind of have them tell us about where they're at now and what that experience did to them in their life and how it affected them and their trajectory. It's been a super cool ride so far. All of our episodes have been super insightful. You guys go check out the rest of them. But thank you for being here at this one. My guest today is, like I said, Ron Alford. So he is one of the most legendary people who ever did this program. There's 100,000 living alumni out there in the world who did this thing. And he sits at the number 3 all-time most products sold ever in this company, which is a pretty impressive feat. He sold 9 full summers with Southwestern, did another 4 part summers once he hit the district sales manager level, and then stayed with the company for another 8 years after that. So he was in for a total of 20 years with Southwestern. He was part of the Seeds organization. Later on, turned it into the Redline organization. He went to the to the Seattle Pacific University, originally obviously from Seattle himself. If you want to reach him, Ron Alford Coach is his Instagram handle, at Ron Alford Coach. You guys will see it on the screen periodically pop up, so you can get a hold of Ron if you need to say hello. If you're an old friend that hasn't heard from him in a while, you can go say hi to him there. A couple of fun facts about Ron as well. He has at the time when he left Southwestern, he had one of the really cool stats that I really appreciate, is that he was the only person at that till that point to have hit 12,000 units or more 4 times, which is really impressive. Nowadays, a unit is worth like $8 in profit, so and that's not bad for a summer. It's like 72 grand for the summer, not a bad check. And I think one of the most impressive things about his mentality, and we're going to hear about this as he's on the show, is that he hit Mort Utley, which is one of the level or the benchmarks in sales. He hit Mort 75 times in his career, which is really impressive. Talks a lot about consistency and mentality. We're going to get to hear a little bit more about what goes into doing some feat like that. And so hopefully you guys enjoy. I would like to welcome the show, once we're back from this, Ron Alford.
Ponytails Podcast. Here we go.
Boom. And we're live, sir. How's it going?
Andres, how are you?
I'm so good. So happy to have you here. Oh, man. Oh, what a good time. What a good time to be alive. How are you, sir?
I always hear about the guests and the people that are sharing and rapping and all that with you, man, and fun to finally be a part of this.
I'm just so excited. When we started the show, I remember we were dreaming. It's like, can you imagine some of the more amazing guests, like some of those big names that we talked about, like Dustin Hillis, Dave Rosen, Ron Alford. Like you were one of the people that was a North Star for us to keep doing this and to keep growing, because we like to celebrate people who did this program, and you deserve a lot of celebration for who you are, man. So I'm happy that you're here and I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. It's fun to be here. It's obviously a big part of each of our backgrounds, the Southwestern world. So
yeah, what a ride, right? What a ride. Well, let's dive in. I know I got you for a little bit of time here. And so let me just dig right into this thing. Catch us up. I mean, the last time I heard from you, it was mid 2010s when you left, and you were kind of like looking to do going to the coaching thing. Catch us up. What have you been up to? Well, what are you doing nowadays? And yeah, let's just dive in.
Yeah. Well, I was actually when I started in '94 in the Southwestern family and did 20 years, and then actually it was summer of 2013 that I knew that was it, man. It was my last year. It was 20 years on the button, and just was like, man, I've never made a resume in my life. What am I going to do? And I just looked around. I mean, took a lot of that year. It took about 5 or 6 months to go shadow and look around and think. I'm a very loyal person by nature. My sports teams, my music, my jobs, and I just knew whatever I was going to do next was probably going to be the long game, right? It was going to be forever. And so I really wanted to make the right choice. And so I interviewed a lot of different places, finally decided to actually stay with the family, with Southwestern family, moved over to Southwestern Consulting, and been here ever since. So it's where I'm at now. And as of today, literally just wrapping up my day right now with them.
Love it. I love it. And big shout out also to Will Metscher. He's one of our partners here on the show. He's hiring also with Southwestern Consulting. You know Will pretty well. He's one of the better coaches out there. If you guys are
a Spartan beast race 2 weeks ago, Andres. So Will was in Seattle. He's like, and I'm a ultra runner, but I don't do like, monkey bar crap. And Will's like, dude, I'm going to be in Seattle doing one of my Spartans. You got to join us. And so he talked me into not just doing the sprint or the super or whatever they call it, but some beast. And so we just did that like 2 weeks ago. It was awesome.
Oh, Will Metscher is a beast, so that makes sense. He's doing that. He's awesome. We love him lots. If you guys have questions about what consulting is and how you guys can get involved, let us know. We'll get you in touch with Will, by the way. But now, okay, let me dig into this real quick. I didn't know we were going to get into this early, but I want to talk about this because you said you're an ultra runner. We've had a couple of people who were ultra runners here on the show before, but you're one of the few people I remember that I know personally that like did the 100-mile race, right? And like where you ran that. Now you broke your foot through this race. Is this accurate? Am I remember this story correctly?
Yeah.
Tell me about this.
Yeah. So the shorter version, and you can go as deep as you want, but I had for a lot of years done the traditional like half marathon street stuff, and just got so dang addicted to my watch, and it just was not fun. I was always beating myself up over my time. And finally I went out and started doing some mountain stuff and the trails, and I just loved it because it wasn't like 1 mile is not equal, right? I mean, a mile there is so different, and you have a 20-minute mile sometimes, and so I just fell in love with it, did a lot of stuff that there was no medal, there was no race. It was just, on your own. And did a 50K, did some 50 milers, and then finally said, okay, I want to do that. The Mecca, did a 100 miler in east of Santa Barbara, in like a place called Los Olivos, the kind of foothills out there, and did it with a buddy. We started at 6 p.m. with, headlamps pretty quick. And 62 miles in, we were still together, and my foot and ankle were just, it was like limp mode for sure. And you never know, I was just, struggling to move, let alone run. And, running or any athletics, you never know what's a real injury versus what just hurts, but you got to push through it.
Right.
And so I'm just, praying this is just something that hurts, but I got to push through it. So the next 38 miles gritted out, man. Like I borrowed a person's, the poles to kind of help take off the weight to be able to limp a little better. And then went home, finished the 100-miler, flew back home a couple days later, and then went and got it diagnosed. It was actually a pretty severe stress fracture. So it wasn't like a full traditional break, but it was stress fracture of the foot, which I was in a walking cast for a couple weeks. And so it sucked.
So you only did 38 miles with the broken foot, not even half.
Exactly. Come on, man.
Come on, challenge yourself, will you? Like,
exactly.
How do you do that? Like, to me, that sounds bananas. You see, to us to us people that don't run, I've never ran a marathon, so 100 miles is crazy. But how do you push that boundary with your mind? What did you attach yourself to?
I think for any of the listeners that aren't into running, I don't know how else to describe it besides it's like life. It's like your marriage. It's like your businesses. It's just there's a lot of things I still struggle with and I'm working on and want to grow in. Thankfully, mental fortitude and persistence is not one of those. And I don't know the word stop. And that's not always a good trait. That can bite you, of course. And so there's a time and place where quitting is the right thing to do. So, and so for me personally though, and something like that, it's like, okay, if I can still move, they always say, run when you can, walk if you have to, crawl if you must, just don't ever give up. And it's like, I'm going to get to that dang finish line.
And how okay, you said a couple of things there that were super interesting. So when you say it could be a bad thing, has there been a time where in your life where you're like, okay, that was actually not good? And how do you discern through that? Because that's hard for especially book people who are kind of not quitters because they're stubborn.
Exactly.
We're like, I gotta get to week 12, right? Or whatever. How have you found it to be helpful to discern that? Because that's a tough call.
Yeah, it really is. And it's even looking back, I still struggle with it, kind of knowing when to adjust. It doesn't have to be quit, but it's just course correct or adjust. How do I make an adjustment to my habits or to my routines or to maybe something I'm putting in my body? It could be my sleep schedule, it could be my morning routines, whatever it is. A different thing we did, the Grand Canyon, I did quit. And that was one where I had trained and not prepared well enough and was basically in over my head, didn't prepare nearly as well as I should have. And was going to go rim to the other rim to the back to the rim. And before we got to the rim, realized we were having severe heat exhaustion. And there's a fine line between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And when you get to heat stroke, your life's on the line. And we were throwing up and vomiting, and both of us, my buddy and I both. And so about 3.5 miles from the north rim, we decided to turn around and end our journey. And that was one where quitting really helped us, and it sucked. And we were so disappointed and so, embarrassed because it was goal. And it's a hit to your pride and all that. But it was like, thankfully we got out of the damn canyon, flew back in 3 months and did it the right way and finished it.
Oh, okay. That's sweet. You didn't give up on it at all. It didn't quit. You just restarted.
Exactly. I remember looking at him in the eyes, my buddy Drew, who's also an alumni, a guy named Drew Clark. He sold books as well. And, just that moment we said, man, we got to turn around. We should have turned around a few hours ago. And because it's a long way back down to the river and then to climb out of the South Rim that night. And it's the beginning of July. There's no one in this dang canyon. We were idiots for going to that season. But But anyway, long story short, we looked each other in the eye. I said, okay, we have to turn around and get out of this thing as quick as we can. We'll be back. You promised me you're going to be back with me. We're going to do this. And so we made that decision right then that we would fly back more prepared.
Wow. That's a lesson right there, though, because it's just about the restart. Now, that's hard. That's hard for a book person to hear. Especially the ones that lasted multiple summers, the ones that sold a lot, the ones that went far and became DSMs. It's like, how do you like swallow that, right? That idea of like, oh, hey, this is the best thing. There's a difference between quitting or going on and persisting and doing the smart thing. And in that case, for sure, I'm glad you turned around. Because man.
Yeah, I mean, it took us 22 hours to get out of this stupid thing, and we didn't even finish. So
that's so bananas, man.
Yeah,
that is bananas.
Not a fun deal, but it's just, I think everyone on here can relate to. It's the times that just humble us, man. That's what I loved about Southwestern books, is it just humbled you, no matter what accolades and how much your summer check was and how many units you delivered and whatever. And even for your listeners that are non-Southwestern alumni, like we can all relate to things that just that's part of what I love about ultra running is it breaks you. It doesn't allow you to get ego or arrogance. It just reminds you how small you are in a good way, and how fragile you are. And I just love that. Love it.
That's brilliant. Do hard things. That's awesome.
Yes.
How do you prepare for something like that? This is the last question on this, I promise. How do you prepare for like 100 miles? You want 130 and you're like, okay, cool. I can do 100 then.
Time on feet. I mean, TOF, it's like you get out and it's very different than, I used to do a lot of 5Ks and half marathons and all that, where it's hustle, it's quick. Right. But this is just purely, it's the long game. You eat meals. I mean, you're eating, you're not just living on goo, you're eating full, because you need calories in that many hours. And so just time on feet. I spent a lot of time early Saturday morning, twice a month, in the Cascade Mountains or the Olympic Mountains or the foothills around Seattle. And, my weekdays, man, I'm all about family and my business. Like I'm up with my kids. I want to be done with work around 5, and I don't spend a ton of time, but I get at least 2 Saturdays a month where I go big. And that's usually early in the morning. My wife gives me permission. And then the other weekend days, the rest of the month, I'm all in with my family and chilling and relaxing. But those 2 times I go big, get me prepared for the event.
And you just go run like a ton. You just go.
I do. I don't train nearly as much as a lot of people that do this stuff, though, because to me, part of the point of the event is not to be a top this or top that. It's to suffer. And it's to learn how to suffer better. And so, you've heard of the pain cave. Like the reality is, if I'm doing I did an event just a couple weeks back that was just 15 miles, but it was hot as heck. And it was like really steep and technical single track trail, not to get too, long story short, it kicked my butt. And I was only about 4 or 5 miles in, and I was struggling. I was already feeling a lot of cramps, and just the terrain of this mountain was not ideal. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm only a third of the way into this sucker. I'm in the pain cave. Let's go. Now it's time to suffer. And it's like, I gotta just get used to suffering for the next how many ever hours. I could have trained more, but that would have sacrificed time with my family or on my business. So I'd rather train less and then suffer more on race day, because that's part of I don't know, it might sound weird to some people, but
no, that's wild. I get it. It's the point of it is the challenge, not the it's literally the journey. When they say success is the journey, like that's literally the point of you doing this. Is your mentality is not to finish the 100 miles. You could care less that it's 100 miles almost. It's just more the fact that miles 64, you're like, all right, let's do this or whatever. And that's crazy. That's crazy. Let me jump into some Southwestern stuff as well, and kind of like, jump around here. Before we do that, quick shout out to Quintin Roberts. He gave us some advice this week. If you guys don't know, there were Cardinal senior benefits. He's talking about the insurance game. Be sure to look at the culture of the companies that you're going into. If you're going into insurance, people in the industry fail because they don't have a good grasp on their money, but it's actually more because of the fact that they are not aware of the culture that they're joining. So make sure you join a company that you're willing to marry. That was good advice from Ron himself just now when he talked about when he moved on to the next company. Make sure that's something that you really love. You're not just doing it for the money or for something dumb like that, but you actually enjoyed that. So cool. Good stuff. Thanks a lot. Cardinal Senior Benefits, they are hiring. Let us know if you want to hear more information about them. Hey, Ron. Okay, so question for you on this. When you got recruited into Southwestern, I always like to wind the clocks back and go to the first summer. What do you remember of that first experience when you first heard about Southwestern? Where were you? Sent me this picture. We're sitting there at Seattle Pacific University. How did you get into this thing?
Yeah, well, dude, I wish I was at Seattle Pacific University back then. So I was a military kid in high school, went to high school in Alaska, came back, no idea what I wanted to do. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Was just jamming through some classes at Tacoma Community College. Shout out to TCC.
Let's go. That's just up the road from here.
And I was literally starting to train for boot camp for the Marine Corps. Both my older brothers were Marine vets. And I was just like, well, what am I going to do, man? I'm going to probably just go into the Marines like my bros did. And And then, man, I was literally only a week before the summer. I was going into finals. And a buddy of mine, a guy named Dave, that was already a month into his summer. He went to Washington State University on semester. So he was already a month into selling books his first summer. I was still going to school because we're on quarters. So
Right.
May versus June. He calls me, and I think they had some program where, like, call your buddies at home and see if they can you can still recruit them. And he's like, dude, I'm going to have someone call you. He might be a fit, might not. He gave me a great buying atmosphere. But man, you got to at least hear about this job I'm doing. He's like, it's awesome. He didn't tell me much. It's awesome.
The sizzle, not the steak. The very
dude. It's like,
sizzle.
what? So I'm like, he's like, man, you run your own business, you make good money, you help families. He gave me all the. So I was like, sure, I'll take a call. And I remember hearing, and they sent a guy named Andrew Mead, who is a great alumni, good buddy. They Southwestern sent him from Seattle, University of Washington, where he was recruiting, down to Tacoma to meet with me for lunch. And I remember Andrew calling me and saying, hey, can you meet for lunch tomorrow? I'll tell you about this internship. We leave in like 5 or 6 days. So they were like getting ready to jam. Yeah. And he's like, by the way, do you have any friends that, might want to hear about this too? He was a smart recruiter. And I was like, sure. Because I got my dumbest friend ever, my buddy Jason Bungie. That's like, Bungie's the kind of dude that's like, you want to freaking jump off the Empire State? He's like, sure. And so I call Bungie. We call him, and I say, Bungie, dude, some sort of opportunity. Come to lunch with me tomorrow, man. So me and Bungie go have lunch with Andrew Mead. And by the end of the lunch, he's signing us both up and telling us about the car caravan. He came and met my parents the next night, which they still talk about. And we left that Thursday. And we literally left and car caravan from Seattle to Nashville for that first summer in '94. And at the time, we had no idea where we were going to go. It wasn't until the end of sales school they told us that summer we were going to be in Dallas, Texas, which, again, high school in Alaska, I'd never been around humidity. So that was awesome.
Or heat. Oh, that kind of heat anyway. That's brutal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome to torture.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my into Southwestern.
So 94, was that the same year as Yvette?
Yvette was 95. She was 1 year.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Wow. Legendary summer. And that first one is always the one I like to like really dig into the beginning of, because it's it's a wet St. Bernard, as Bill Zizzy calls it, when it just hits you. And especially if you got recruited. I got recruited Wednesday of finals week. So I'm with you. Like you go from like, yeah, we have no plans. We're going to do this for the summer. No clue what this even is. Next thing you know, 2 weeks later, hi, are you the mom of that?
Yep.
Wild. So how did that first summer play out? And how did you know you wanted to come back for another, 19 years?
Yeah. Good question. Dude, 29 years. I'm still with Southwestern. So
that's true.
I'm trying to think back. I think for some of us, if I had heard about it much earlier, I probably would have talked myself out of it. But it hit me the right way. Like I was in a group of friends. Just habits weren't good. I just needed a shift, man. I wanted something to kick me in the butt. I was looking for something to just kind of shake it up, and so it hit me perfect. And so when I went out, Andrew Mead on the caravan to Nashville, I remember him telling me that he thought Bungie was going to kill it because Bungie was real talkative and coachable and kind of a yes man. And I was just really quiet and kind of skeptical and not saying much. And he always said, I thought Bungie would kill it and you'd quit. And the two of us, they had already had all their host families set up. So the two of us had to go knock on doors and find our own family in Dallas. And just the two of us were roommates and got bikes. Neither one of us had a car. Week 3, Bungie rode his bike home. At the end of the night, says, dude, I'm out, man. I'm out. This sucks. He's like, let's go home, man. Ken Griffey Jr., Seattle, baseball, come on, let's go home. We can landscape. We got the summer job waiting for us. Oh, dude, misery loves company. And so he wanted me to jet with him. And I still look back to those pivotal times in our life where I remember, I don't know why, I don't know what it was, but I remember just saying, let me think about it till Sunday. And I remember saying, man, I got to stay. I got to do this. And so for the next 3 weeks, I had no roommate. He left. They didn't have anyone for me to live with. So I was living alone. And it was just, I remember waking up, just eating some cold cereal and riding my bike off the turf in Dallas. And and it really sharpened me, man. I mean, it really got me tough. Like I felt like I had a bit of a cake life up to that point. And this is something that really helped me think differently. So ended up doing fine, did a few thousand units, got a check for 12,000. Didn't know why, but I was bitter at the end of the summer. I was very Jekyll and Hyde. Like they're best friends if they bought, but I was just very volatile emotions and didn't treat people the way I should have. And it's just, so I felt ugly. I felt ashamed at the end, actually, even though I had made good money and people thought that was neat. I felt ashamed of it. And, I didn't want to have anything to do with another summer. I was cold as heck, went back, went to CCC, got a job at Alaska Airlines, loading the airplanes. And then it was actually Amy Brockdevine that wouldn't stop pestering me in, probably November, December. She kept saying, come to the awards banquet, come to the little get back. It would just be fun to see you. You don't have to work with us again. It would just be fun to see you. And it was kind of neat because she wasn't my manager. So she seemed safe. Like it wasn't my manager trying to quote, get me back or make money off me.
There's no financial incentive. So it felt more, it was knowing Amy, it was probably really genuine.
Yeah, exactly. It was massively genuine. Her heart, you do know Amy. And I mean, dude, 17 years of doing mission work abroad. Like she's got the biggest heart in this world. And even then though, I still was unsure. Well, Andrew Mead in about January said, dude, let me come over to Port Orchard where I was living, kind of a couple hours away from the city. He says, let me just meet a few of your friends. We'll go out, we'll have some, have some pancakes, whatever. Of course, he's going to do an info session. An interview. And I remember he's like, I'll buy the pancakes. And I remember just scarfing pancakes for about an hour and a half. And at the end of the meeting, I looked at him. It was me and I brought 4 of my friends. And I remember looking at him saying, I think you just got 5 people to do Southwestern next summer. Because they were all excited. And I was like, man, I need to do this again. I had unfinished business and I needed to go figure out how to be better with people and be better with my emotions. And that was when I made the decision to come back. I brought those 4 with me and then I added a 5th. And so I brought a 5-person team and came back for a second summer.
That's awesome, man. Can you imagine? You just mentioned 2 key moments in your life where if pancakes weren't involved, where would your life be without pancakes?
Dude, right?
You know what I mean?
Exactly. If you would have taken me out for like burgers or something, it wouldn't have been the same.
No. You need to get a tattoo of pancakes somewhere. Like, I know you got a cool sleeve. You got to get like a tattoo of pancakes, like
some hot cakes somewhere. That's a good point.
Take your ribs and maybe make them out of the shadow, something like that.
Right.
But on a serious note, like, like you ever think back when you're, just driving or whatever, when you're in your races, like what would happen to you? Where would you be if you would, what was his name? Bungie? If you would have gone back with him, like where would you be? What would your life be like?
Dude, Andres, I do a lot, man. I really do a lot. And
wow.
It's just, I don't know. It's funny. And I say this, Pearl Jam, my favorite band, has a song called WMA and it's called White Male American. And it just talks about privileged people. And, there's that part of me even growing up where it's just like, why do I deserve any of this? And that's a battle. It's a battle in my head where I don't know why it's emotional to me, but it's something that I do look back at that a lot. And I'm like, I don't know why I deserved to make those decisions or have these opportunities. But it turns into something inspiring to me to give other people a chance or to help other people have redemption or to whatever. So it's like, I can either be ashamed of it and, or I can try to use it for good. So that's a lot of what drives me.
That's beautiful. Okay. Ooh, I have so many questions for you, man. I'm trying. This is so inspiring, and this is what I love about this show is we get to talk about this cool stuff that you don't hear in an advanced sales tape. But on the note of like when you look back in your time with Southwestern, and you look at your life now, whether with your business or as a dad or as a husband, like what are some things that you take that you say that you took or you still like tap into from your experiences of learning throughout, whether that first summer or any of the summers that you were there? Like what are some things that you've applied to the most in your life?
Yeah. Well, the first one that I think of a lot is perspective, man. I just, when I lose perspective, I get ugly. I
Mm.
get critical of people. I get anxiety, and I'm sure things that all your audience can relate with. And books gave me perspective, man. It just helped open me up. I got to sit down with thousands of other families over the summers and just think and get my ass handed to me, for lack of a better, and
Yeah.
so it gave me a lot of perspective on. And I remember after my first summer, I got that check for 12 grand. I bought a shiny new red truck, and I was too cocky to get insurance on it. And lo and behold, that December, I was driving in the snow, totaled the damn thing. The whole summer check was
Wow.
gone. And it's just things like that that give you perspective. Like I get to look back now and think, okay, it's just money, or it's just whatever. And so many of those Southwestern stories, man, they really did give me a lot of perspective. So that way, when we're in pandemics, whether they're global pandemics like COVID, or they're personal pandemics or personal adversity, it's like, okay, I'm going to breathe in perspective through this. I'm going to not get rattled as easily as maybe someone else might. And it just helps you stay calm. And so that's a big one. I think the power of not being an island. I always was for some reason had grown up just a prideful person, and was like, I can do this on my own, and kind of had this angst with the world for some reason. It's part of why I fell in love with Pearl Jam in the early 90s, is they were just like bitter, angry people. Like F everybody. And I was like, yeah. And man, it's cool now with their music, because they have such a heart, man. They're so giving and so much love. And it's like, I really connect with their lyrics and their music, because I can also relate. I feel like a lot of that angst has been calmed. And my point was being around people, not having pride. I feel like I have to do it on my own. Books taught me that too. Like, lean on other people, man. The more I try to do this on my own, the more I'm going to fall on my face. The more I get support, encouragement, camaraderie, etc., I shine.
Oh, so good. This is brilliant, sir. This is brilliant. I commend you for that, because perspective, I always thought, for me, like when people talked about attitude in the book field, people were like, "How good attitude," and it was always like positive attitude, and people always, I feel like, confuse that with the word attitude with like being optimistic, which could be the same thing, but to me, attitude is more like perspective,
Yep.
which means having a positive attitude doesn't necessarily mean be positive. It means look at this the best way possible. And if you're in a situation which just genuinely sucks, because life is like that, right? You broke your foot mile 62 or whatever, right? Or I don't know, like go through a breakup, or you whatever, all the whatever struggles life throws at you. And then you think to yourself, all right, what, this situation sucks. And having good perspective also includes taking ownership for that situation and being like, hey, I understand that this is a situation that I'm in, whether by my own devices or because life is just like that sometimes. But being able to step outside and look at it from the best way possible, even though it's a terrible situation, is different than it's going to be a great day. You know what I mean? It's just, it's, there's a line, I feel like. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
No, I think
Good
it's
stuff.
true. It's easy to kind of brainwash ourselves into kind of fake thinking. I feel like there's affirmations and self-talk can be fake, and then they can
Yeah.
be authentic and real. And I'm continually trying to refine self-talk to where it's real. It's not some, I remember my first person I shadowed on the book field, a guy named Doug Weller, at day 2, and he ran around all day saying, I love my job. And I remember the next day, like, okay, I'm supposed to be coachable, and I'm supposed to do the same thing that Doug did. And so I remember running around like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, my name's Ron. Are you the mom here? And boom, slam. I love my job. Just all damn day, I love my job. And I remember feeling like such a fraud. Like, I hate my damn job. This sucks. And learning how to just say, you know what? Every hour gets my best. Every family gets my best. I'm locked in. Nothing can distract me, man. No one can impact my attitude. It's that, affirmations that actually worked versus stuff that felt kind of fake.
Yes. Yes.
So,
I love this. I was like sharing this. My brother, this is what I trained him. I'm like, hey, look, you're gonna hear other people say like best day ever, or when it rains, you're gonna hear them say liquid sunshine. Listen, let me just be real with you. We sell books, and when it rains, that sucks
Yeah.
really bad. Now that sounds terrible to say,
Yeah.
but here's the thing: what's better for you to be like it's liquid sunshine, or to be like, hey, look, you know what? It sucks to sell in the rain. It really does. But it doesn't matter because I'm a man of my word, and I said I was going to work no matter what. And because of that, I'm going to go to the next door and just show these books as best as say. How much better is that? That your brain knows you're not BSing it. Like it's like it knows it's not full of shit, right? You're like, oh no, I am a badass. And then you knock on the door and you feel like a badass because nobody else is doing that. So then it just kind of self prophesizes when you're being real with yourself rather than just like, I love the rain.
Yeah, well said, man. That's a great point. Your bro's Danny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably met Danny in Asia, right?
Yeah. It's neat to think how that has probably made a massive impact for him. And it's just way to go. Like you to share that because that's sustainable. I don't know how many years your bro's been in Southwestern, but I've heard he's building an incredible business, an incredible organization. Yeah. And it's
10 now. Holy cow.
There's the short-term manipulated stuff that can get the gimmicky, get me up for the day, but it just is not sustainable. And the real stuff that you talked to Danny about and that we're talking about right now, that is sustainable, man. That is long-term, infinite game stuff, not some short-sighted crap.
So I love that. I love this. I love what you're saying here. Cause this is the real, when people are like, how do they continue? How like these people, Yvette and Ron's and, Matt Etch, these people who are really good at this job, like how do they continue? That's how, right? It's just, you're just real with yourselves. And it's a lot easier to be yourself when you're being real with yourself. And then you show up at the door and it's a lot more genetic, more organic, more genuine. I said genuine. And it's brilliant. So that's cool. On that note, I wanted to ask you about this because you're one of the few people that we have on the show, had on the show that I can actually ask about consistency. And I know you mentioned this a little bit in the green room before we get ready to record, but this is something I could probably picked about you naturally because you hit Mort 75 times in 9 full summers. And your first summer you didn't hit Mort, which means there's only a certain number of weeks out of 100 and whatever, and you hit 75 times Mort. That speaks to the consistency. And that speaks to that, to a ability to get in flow and get into that. So I wanted to ask you, what were some of the keys as you were doing this and how this whole like record came about, because that's hard to do. And so what were some keys for you throughout your career that like help you stay with that consistency?
Yeah. I think just being aware, like I love to study people and just study trends and to study people. And I always remember seeing my first couple summers, I never hit Mort. It wasn't until the middle of my third summer. And
wow.
And I remember seeing people hit it. I won't get into the specifics, but I remember seeing a variety of people have a great week or whatever it was, and then they would dip. They would take their foot off the gas, and you'd see these roller coaster examples. And I always remember thinking, man, it would be neat to just be able to sustain these things. And I remember that third summer, our group was really like 1996, I guess it was, to date myself. We were fired up. Like University of Washington was nowhere on the map before that. We were like, let's go. Let's get this sucker to number one. Why are we going to fly in these people from Virginia and Texas and Florida to speak in Seattle? Come on. We should be the ones going to others. And we developed this culture of kind of angry, young, but also let's go. We pushed each other hard. And so a lot of people that summer in our group had some good weeks, but I remember hitting Mort the first week and thinking, okay, I have to back this up. And I remember writing Sunday night before the next week. And again, whether people sold books or not on this podcast, I remember writing my nickname, because y'all remember how we would have nicknames every week. And I would write my nickname before the week began. And I wrote my nickname, Real Men Go Back to Back. And I'll always remember doing it. It was a kind of a slight, because I got that little inner competitiveness to Jerry Morales and Christian and a couple of my boys that had hit more, but then they went back down to 400, 500, 600, 700, whatever. And it was kind of like, I got to back this up. You got it. Yeah. And so that was where it started. It was just like, okay, I don't want to be one of those that goes backwards. And then, that turned into the next thing of like, I wonder how I could do it in week 1 the next summer, or I wonder how I could do it no matter what happened. And so just really learning to train my brain to think. Back then, 200 units in a day was, the numbers were different. And so training my brain to where I really believed and bought into the certain packages, the certain customers, the certain things to hit at least 200 a day. So that way, even if I fell short, I'd still hit 1100. 600, 200 a day times 6, obviously 1200. Even if I fall short of it, I'll hit 1150 or 1050.
Wow.
So it got, and now to my detriment, this is funny looking back, because that's where I never broke out of that pattern. For many, many, many years, I rarely ever would hit more than 13, 14, 1500. But then that's when Kaya and others, we had Ruthie in our group, Kaya, some others came along, and then they learned how to get out of that. So I had put a ceiling on myself. I got so programmed that 1200 was so anyways, it was good. I was consistent.
That's wild.
But it's interesting looking back where I never was able to get to the next level.
Right. So, okay. So on this, because this is pretty nuts for people who didn't sell books, and really for people who sold books I never hit more. Danny chased it for a while. He had the Mort Muffin, which is a Grant Greeter idea. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Mort Muffin.
No, I haven't, but it doesn't surprise me. It came from Grant.
It's disgusting. Basically, he bought a muffin, and Grant said, "You can't eat that muffin until you hit Mort." And so he put it on his dashboard week 1 of his summer. And it was like week 6 by the time it was ready. So he took a bite of it, obviously puked it all out, but that was like the goal, right? But for you, do you think it was harder to do it the first time, the second time, or the last time? I mean, like what did it feel like because I feel like those are different experiences. The first time you're like, what were those instances like?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me personally, the first. Yeah, just then it's like, okay, game on. And I obviously, when I did it right away, the training of our brain, this is a nonstop, activity in life, right? As we're constantly reprogramming and working on readjusting our thoughts, reframing thoughts. I had a guy earlier today I was working with, because he was saying, I am this, I am that, which was very present tense. And I just said, hey, dude, those things happened in your past. I have been this, I have been that. But today's version of us is not yesterday's version. Today and tomorrow's version is new. And until we reframe thoughts, so when I hit Mort, that was an example. That first time was like, okay, this is like me. And I remember my leaders, thankfully, were great. Nate Vogel, Jeff Rogers, like they didn't over celebrate it. They weren't like, you have arrived. Like, it wasn't some big. It was like, dude, that's like you. That doesn't surprise me a bit, man. Wow. And so they acknowledged it and celebrated it, but they also set me up for the sustainability of it, because it's like, that's like you. There's no I knew you'd be doing it, man. Now it's what's the focus for next week, and that really helped me think. Okay, cool, no big deal. This is the new norm.
Wow. And then you mentioned about hitting it like the first week of a summer. I feel like that's also really challenging, because you don't have any names. It's it's the coldest you are, besides like getting into a new town. But even that, you could still kind of, control in your own way. But brand new turf. What was there like a moment where you were nervous about that and you were not sure how did you tackle that problem of like, okay, I don't have my names, I don't have my maps, I don't have any of that.
Yeah, so a couple little I don't know how technically you want to, but I would fly out to sales school. To me, if I was going to sell in a county in North Jersey or Long Island or Connecticut or wherever, I would spend money and fly out and invest some time to get to know the school districts, the language, the curriculum. Because day one, I wanted the moms, the Mrs. Joneses, the people I was approaching, to think I had been there forever. I know it's day one, but what I would do is I'd bring my names folder from the past summer. So I'd have all my names from the past summers, and I'd be looking at all those names I still remembered, because that's my conviction. That's my confidence. That reminds me of all those memories of all those families who were like, thanks, Ron. Just happy families that love what we did. So I was always thinking about those names at the door. And then when she opened the door, I had already done plenty of research on my turf, day one. And then it's just hustle. If I can rock 14 hours that first day and even at least get a couple customers, game on. There's no reason why I'm not getting 10 a day after that. And Now in North Jersey, no one ever wanted that turf. Jersey and Long Island, man, New York, like it's jungle type stuff. Only, I mean, the New Jersey state motto, only the strong survive. And so, dude, permits were like, we would get kicked out of turf constantly. And so where I sold in Texas, my first summer was very different to Jersey. And so I remember having to start each Monday with new turf. A lot of weeks to start where it was. And so I had to learn how to start in new turf, but act as though I had been there forever, and have only 2 names that I could really use, but have them seeing dozens and dozens and dozens of names. And there was the impression that all these are all names from this neighborhood, and how to do that with integrity, where you're not lying, but yet you're still, seeming as though you've been really successful in this neighborhood. And,
wow.
And that helped, that helped.
That's brilliant too. The moral line that was good. That you defined that. That's awesome. 75 times, man. That's crazy. Now, listen. So I have you for another 20 minutes. Are you still good on time?
Yes. Yeah.
There's still so much more to talk about, but this might mean that you have to come back for another episode.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I wanted to ask you about that story that Dan Moore told me about you, which I don't know how long that story takes. And then, of course, there's other any sort of book stories that you might have through there. So we could move into ponytails now, so we could get you right on the timing that you need to be step out by. But if we don't get to everything, just as long as you come back, we're good.
Yeah, I don't care, man. I'll follow your lead. Whatever you want to dive into.
Yeah, let's go do some ponytails here for now. And if we, and then that way that you're in control of, how long you want to tell the stories for. But if we have to come back, we'll come back. But let's go into that one. I want to ask about this one because, the one I'm talking about. So to not spoil it about what happens, I'll just let you tell it from beginning to end. But I think this is one of the most impressive things that you were able to do this, and just walk me through the mentality that you had for this. And so walk us through what was Monday like, and then through Saturday.
Yeah, I some of it we've kind of touched on, because that is the mentality of where this time I've trained my brain so much into the no matter what mentality. There's this no matter what attitude of there's non-negotiables. There's certain things that are negotiable and mood driven, and if this happens, then the if then, right? If this, then this. There's other things that are it is going to happen. And you just have this belief that is so unshakable. And I think everybody can relate with that. So Westfield, New Jersey, Scotch Plains, New Jersey, long story short, was getting these sit downs. I remember I would go to the bathroom a lot with families, because even if I didn't have to go to the bathroom, I would splash cold water on my face. And there was something about looking myself in the eyes and so I would go to sometimes that was my bathroom clothes. When I would show the books, on a high moment, I'd say, hey, why don't you talk about it with the kids? Why don't you talk about it with Mr. Jones? Are you okay if I just use your bathroom? Man, and then you can let me know if it's a yay or nay. If you want to go ahead and order them, and I'll explain how we do the delivery, or if it's not for you, no big deal. And so I would have the perfect momentum, buying atmosphere, set them up for the yes or no, not the maybe. And then I'd say, can I use your bathroom? And I went into this bathroom, and I just took a while for some reason. And I would go in there, and what I would do is I'd get my head right that when I came back out, whether they said yes or no, I was locked in on that next house. I'm unshakable. Ain't nobody else going to affect my mood. Nobody can take my smile away from me. I'm going to come out of this house. And if she said yes, I was like, awesome, let's sign them up and get them going. If they said no thanks, I was going to love on them, treat them unconditional, not like I did my first summer, and leave them in a great mood and move on to that next house. Well, I come out of this house after a while, and the mom has the cops there. And long story short, she says that I was in her bathroom for 20 minutes. And she looked out of my car. She said, I was a kid from Seattle working for a company from Nashville. My car had Florida license plates. She started thinking, this guy's I got all these checks written out to me. She just started kind of overthinking everything, right? And then she started thinking, I'm using all these names of her neighbors. And long story short, she called the cops while I was in the bathroom. They come, they harass me, and these basic cops are just kind of over the top. So they give me a warning. I leave for the next house. It wasn't for about an hour later, where then 3 cop cars pulled me over. And for some reason, they had kind of done more investigation and whatnot in the previous hour. they come and say, hey, dude, we're taking you in. Grab your stuff, grab your freaking rental car and all your gear and all your weird motivational stuff. Because these are like Jersey. I mean, it was Westfield, Jersey is like right outside of Newark, man. This is like Elizabeth and Newark type ground. And
they don't believe in happiness.
Exactly. I mean, I'm just some nice little kid from Seattle working for a company out of Nashville, having everybody write checks to Ron Alford for stuff I'm going to deliver in September. Doesn't add up.
On Florida plates.
And looking back,
like, why are you smiling?
Dude, exactly. Looking back, I'm like, God, that's true. It doesn't add up. How the hell did we do this? And
right, there's so many times you look back, you're like, what the hell were we?
Exactly.
Who let me into their house? What were they thinking?
Exactly. So they literally, man, they sat me down and started accusing me. I guess there had been someone in previous weeks that had been doing some burglaries. There had been some house jobs that had happened. They started thinking this has got to be the dude, and they lay the hammer down. Like I'm in their full court press, like 3 of them, turning up the heat in this room, laying it on, accusing me of everything, trying to get me to break and basically acknowledge that I had done all these things, which of course, no. So they end up keeping me overnight in jail. And this was a Tuesday night. And it just, I'll never forget, man. I was just so upset because I was so competitive and all my competitors were out working and selling and
I mean, your Mets out there hitting more.
Yeah, I didn't even care about being in jail. I just wanted to be out selling. And it's just so long story short, got out that next day, had a good day, ended up having to go to court Thursday. But had a big Friday, Saturday, and just said, I got to get my head right. And I always remember headline news. If there's any alumni that I sold with, they would remember I would used to talk about headline news because I wanted to make headline news. Like, when people have good weeks, it's kind of cool. When people have good weeks in spite of massive adversity, it makes headline news. Like CNN, Fox, the media, that they put the lead story on the front page of USA Today to get people to buy that newspaper, but it's got to be a dramatic story. And those are the movies. And I always remember thinking, man, I want to make headline news. I want to do something not just cool, but in spite of something. And so that really rallied me a lot those summers. And yeah, was able to hit Mort that week, even though being in jail and court and all that crazy crap.
That is the craziest thing, man. How big was your Saturday? I mean, do you remember this?
No, I mean, three something. Yeah, I had a 300 something Friday, 300 something Saturday. So it was maybe 600 or 700 between those 2 days. And then thankfully I had enough Monday and Wednesday and the time where I did work. So
that's so crazy, man. That's crazy. Like, do you think back to yourself and go, that was wild? Or is that like, because I feel like the way your brain works is like, I ran 100 miles. That's normal.
Dude,
but it's not.
I do. I think about that's wild 2 ways. One, it's a confidence anchor. It's something that reminds me, like, we all have these things from our youth and growing up and things that remind us we are capable. We can do this. We can, so on one hand, I think of it as remarkable and like, man, that's no ego or arrogance. It's just more gratitude. Like, God, it's cool that those things happened. On the other hand, I think, who cares? Like, my kids don't give a crap. My kids, I got 3 freaking kids going through puberty right now, man. That you think they care about Mort Utley and all that ish? No. So it's also good, humbling, where it's like the dude talking about the high school football stories. When I was in high school in 10th grade, I blah, 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 blah. So it's a good reminder, Andres, to remind me, like, what have you done lately? I'm not going to be some dude that's Johnny football talking about the glory days, like it's a rally. Like, I got to use those principles that helped me in those things. How can I use that stuff today? So anyways,
brilliant.
Fun.
Brilliant. Okay, last question, and then and if there's still time, I'll have some blitz questions that I always like to ask. But last question: who right now do you look up to the most? Like, who in your life do you go, man, that's the person that really inspires me?
Can I say Jesus and Teddy Roosevelt?
You can say Jesus and Teddy Roosevelt, but we would and you're more than welcome to share why. Those are good. Those are really good. The man in the arena.
I just think people that were not swayed, and no matter what someone's religious beliefs are and whatnot in here, that's not the point. But these are people that just faced massive persecution. They went against the odds. They went against the grain. They did the unpopular. They faced so much unfairness, but they really believed in what was right. They had this piece of them that was unbreakable, unwavering. And those to me are just people that I really think of in my head that I respect a lot, and it means a lot. There's two more I'll give you. John Damoral is 81 years old. He's the leader of a nonprofit I'm in called Liberty Road Foundation. And man, he just has an incredible heart for God. He's just passionate. He did 81 push-ups on his 81st birthday. And he's about 5'0" and he just, dude, he has been through so much in his life. I went through a very unexpected divorce, and I remember talking to John and realizing he had gone through 2 divorces. Two women had left him in his earlier years. I mean, you talk one in like his 40s, one in his 60s. He had no bitterness. He didn't say anything bad about them. He said, man, he respected them like crazy. And he was able to take all these wrongs and still believe. And then the other is Dan Moore. And it's cool being on this podcast to say that. I still, to a lot, always think about how Dan Moore never made it about him. He remembered the little things. His ability to listen and hear was just next level. And I just, that's an example for me that I think of often.
Yeah, I would agree with Dan Moore that way too. I mean, it's people have differing opinions after they leave Southwestern, and they want to always blame kind of like corporate and all that stuff. And they're entitled to, I don't know. Right.
Yep.
But from a personal experience, like when you talk to Dan Moore and he remembers the name of your cat in 8th grade, and you're like, what the hell? Like, what?
Exactly.
Like, what? For everyone, like everyone he ever meets.
Dude, exactly. Like, I saw him, how he treated early leavers, alumni that sold 500 units 8 years ago. Like he Andres, you hit it. He treated people with dignity, not treated. That makes it sound like it's treats. It's very present. He just treats people and looks at people like they matter. They all matter. And he's very unconditional with how he treats people. And that's something I'm really working on. I'm really, not great at it yet, but I'm really trying to be better at it.
It's such a gift because you feel seen by someone like that when you're like, we had an interaction in the hallway of the company, 7 years ago, and today you're calling me about the thing that you remembered because of that, like you just that connection. We had Tesla Plant on here. She sold books. She was the number 1 first year, like 2017 or something, and her dad sold. Her dad passed away when she was younger. And I guess Dan Moore just kind of bumped into her when she hadn't become the number 1 first year yet. So she was still like kind of like just, I think, a sales school or something. And she bumped into her and he was like, hey, your dad looked like, and he told her about her dad. Wow. And it was like a really important moment in her life because that was like, she spoke on the episode about it, like how it really shook the kind of people that worked at this company, and that could treat you in such a way with that dignity. So that was, I like that you share that. That's really amazing. For sure. Okay, here's what we'll do. I definitely need to have you back on the show if you'd be open to it. Buying Atmospheric here, that'd be great. When we have more time to talk about more Southwestern stories, because I'm sure 20 years you have 1 or 2 more. But we'll jam here with the last. I always like to do these blitz questions, so it's like rapid fire as they come to my head, and just as you think about it. Since you sold a lot of summers, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. And actually, this rapid fire segment brought to you guys by Southwestern Real Estate. Pat Roach is a big fan. He's one of our big supporters. He is currently hiring. So you guys, if you want to get into real estate, this is a good time because houses are going for sale. So you can make some good money right now with that. So let us know if you want to reach out to Pat for you so you can get a interview there. But okay, so Pat Roach, quick rapid fire questions. Here we go. Number 1. Favorite territory you sold in?
Fairfax County, Virginia.
Nice. Solid.
Fairfield County, Connecticut. And I'm tied.
Oh, okay.
It's like picking my favorite kid. Come on. It was all good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. Worst territory you sold in? You're like, never again.
The rest of it. No, I'm kidding. Freaking Westfield, New Jersey, man. I told you. Went to jail.
I was gonna say that's pretty slam dunk. I don't know if something worse happened somewhere else, but fair enough. Okay, big brick, country or suburbs?
Oh, dude, I gotta admit, I love the country. Um, just there's something about down home people that aren't expecting you and whatnot. But if I had to go rock the units, big brick, man, let's go. Let's deal with the movers and the shakers.
I love that. Biggest rival in your career? They're like, who did you compete with the most? You're like, this is I got it. No matter what, I'm gonna beat this. You're the rose into your Zizzy.
Yeah, Peggy Spillinger was probably it. I did get her most summers, but she was just cute and like 4'10", and she always wore a bow in her hair, and she's like, I just had a perfect approach, and she was so good. So yeah, Peggy Spillinger, Amy Brockdevine, those ones for sure.
Solid, solid, solid. Um, best best breakfast spot you had throughout your summers, if you remember.
Yeah, the VD, the Valley Diner, the venereal disease. We ate at the VD in Orange, Connecticut. Dude, that's funny. These things come back to you. We had 3 waitresses. We named Sunshine, Darkness, and Camel. Because Camel, of course, just stunk like cigarettes. Sunshine was like every day she was just in a good mood and spreading joy. And then Darkness was gloomy, man. She was ugly. And so that we had those 3 waitresses I'll always remember.
Oh, I love that. And then last one, favorite advanced sales tape.
God, I listened to music, man. I didn't listen to advanced sales.
Yeah.
I turned the damn music up. So I didn't have one.
All right, that's fine. Fair enough. In that case, I'll replace it with favorite podcast lately.
I still listen
Why is it
mostly, but
why is it the Ponytails podcast?
Yeah, let's go Ponytails. Come on. I mean, this is one that I definitely want to be listening to more. It's I think to me, God, Tim Ferriss is good because I think his ability to ask great questions. I think he's got a lot of great guests on there, and that's one that I'll listen to sometimes. But yeah, that's what I would say.
That's right. It's a tie between that and the Ponytails. I know it.
Tim Ferriss / Ponytails, not in that order.
Not in no particular order.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. All right, man. Well, we can start wrapping it up with this one. Guys, if you want to reach Ron, if you guys have some questions for him, you can find him on LinkedIn. If you sold books, you just want to say hi, you can always go reach him there, as well as on Instagram at Ron Alford Coach. And you can go message him there if you want to know more about like working with him or Will Metscher. With Southwestern Consulting, they do a really good job of coaching others. Of course, we also want to shout out a couple quick things, a couple people we didn't mention. So sorry. We want to Elevate Wellness. Thank you guys so much for getting us in shape for Bizzler. We had a blast, and these guys are good. If you have an upcoming Sizzler, they have a giant Sizzler shred coming up right now. Good packaging, and they're giving out prizes for it. If you want more details on that, check the link below. That's well on its way, but you can still join. Thank you so much for EnLight.Energy. You guys are the greatest. Alex Black out there, good buddy of mine. You guys are doing great. They are also crushing it right now in the solar game. So make sure you join us there. And of course, if you guys like what you heard, if you guys want to check out more episodes, this is season 6 finale, but we are starting season 7 with Robin Mukherjee. Great episode. You don't want to miss that. We already recorded it. We've saved that specifically for the season premiere because it's wild. He's got some stories, man.
Robin's class act, man. I love what he's built too. I just briefly, I spoke about 3 or 4 Sundays ago in the middle of Washington State to all the students from Bulgaria, the Czech Republic. They're all selling in Washington this summer. Yeah. That's the legacy that Robin has left, man. And he's still a huge heart for people. Awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. Blanca and some of those guys are up there. Yeah.
You got it. She's awesome.
Yeah. And Elliot Cohen is up there too. He's love Elliot. He was on the show early on. Yeah. Great dude. Okay, well, on that note, that is it for season 6. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been Ron Alford, and that means we have to have him back again because we got way more book stories to share. Maybe we'll have you on with Grant and Yvette so we can do like a party mixer episode or something, like a party episode or something like that. Always open to that. For sure. Thank you guys so much. My name is Andres Gamboa. If you guys liked what you heard, please subscribe. Follow us. Give us a review, even if it's bad. We like the good and the bad. We need to learn and grow, and we need those bad reviews to know what we can do better. We need the good ones to let us know that we're doing a good job. But thank you so much again, Ron. You are awesome. Looking forward to the next time we have you on. God bless, my friend.
You too, Andres. Thanks for all you're doing, brother.